All right. Try this again. I'm not sure what happened, but it booted us off. Um, Put it back up. We'll see what happens. I don't know if it was a community guidelines thing or what had happened. Yeah, got flagged for something. But what we'll do is we'll try to talk about GUNS without having GUNS in the frame. Maybe we'll grab some parts or something like that. So here we go. Can't display GUNS on the thing. Got it. Sounds good. Well, here's to you guys. Thanks for coming back and sticking with us. So what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about what we've got going on and go from there. So the MRP, what's nice about the MRP and being able to swap your barrels is just as quickly as you can remove that stock and change it up. The DMR stock, you can pull that off and have it good for about 30 seconds swap or something like that. Your barrel is about the same. Your barrel, you can pull that out and switch calibers, lengths, operating systems. You can go from DI to piston, 300 blackout to 5.56. You can do all that in about a minute. So that's the nice thing about the SPR stock, and what makes it good, the MRP, MRP upper platform in the DMR stock is you can take one weapon system, one platform, and you can swap the barrel for something else a little bit longer range, or you can take it out, put a training barrel in. So if you're going to do some sim shooting or something like that, or use a SIRTA round, something that's going to be nastier on the barrel, you could swap out your good barrel and switch to a training barrel pretty quickly and go from there. DMR stock, same thing. So at the range or at your vehicle or something like that, you can quickly change the attitude of your rifle and how it's going to perform on your mission, or if you want to go hunting or something like that. Whatever you want to do, you can change that. So that's the nice thing about the DMR and the MRP uppers. So going from there, let's see if there's got any questions. We could talk about questions. It is good for young shooters and getting proper cheek rise. If anything else, in my experience, I have two daughters, teaching my daughters to shoot. They don't understand. I mean, you could tell them and you could show them, hey, you got to have your cheek here. It's got to sit like this. And, your eye relief and all that stuff with your scope. This is how it needs to be. They don't really understand. And before you know it, they'll take a couple shots and they'll slide all the way to the back of that stock and, start trying to aim down their scope the wrong way. So having that DMR stock with the cheek rest where it needs to be, that's a good place for them to keep reference. So they can just, keep moving around. So, yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Any other questions right now? Anybody got anything, on their mind? Will it run suppress and unsuppress out of the box? Marzell. So typically all of our guns, all of our systems will run suppressed and unsuppressed out of the box. It all depends on what you're shooting and what kind of can you have and what your desired feedback is. What a lot of new suppressor owners don't understand right off the bat is that, yeah, you're going to get that sound reduction. You're going to get, it's going to be a little more comfortable to shoot on the range. And then your buddies are going to enjoy it as well because you're not, blowing their eardrums out as well. But what they don't understand is there is a cost. There is a price to pay for shooting suppressed. A lot of that comes from gas, back through the gas operation system. Especially, on a DI gun, that's how it works. It's based off of gas. So you're going to increase the gas pressure in the system. That's going to come back downstream, through the upper receiver and back towards the shooter. That's where it ends up at. That is one of those things that you have to live with a suppressor, unless you're going to change your gas block, put something adjustable on there. I know they have adjustable gas keys. All that's going to do is slow how slow down how the bolt opens and stuff like that. It's not really going to change the gas coming back to the gas key. It's just going to change how the gas key interprets that gas. That's a lot like what the enhanced carrier does. You still have the same amount of gas coming to the carrier, but it just is a little bit more efficient in how it opens the bolt and stuff like that. That's something to keep in mind. The other thing is enhanced carrier velocity. Because that gas is coming down, you got more of it. You're going to speed your gun up. You're going to have a little bit more felt recoil, just a little bit, not a lot. A little bit more felt recoil, but your gun will run faster. So keep that in mind when you run suppressed and unsuppressed or switching it back and forth. It will run. Are you getting the desired results when you switch it to suppressed and put the can on? If not, there's a couple options. You can add some buffer weight. You can switch from like an H to a H2 or an H3 even. There are different buffer systems. Silent captured springs. A lot of people use the Full-Tor A5 system is very popular. So keep that in mind. That's other stuff that you can use. There are some guys that'll pull the LMT gas block off. It's kind of hard to do because it's pressed on. We don't use screws and stuff like that on our gas blocks. We actually press that on, and then we drive a pin laterally across to ensure that gas block isn't going to go anywhere. If you have a gas block on a DI system that moves, you're going to really increase your chances of having a weapon failure in the worst condition. I mean, there's no way to fix that. You got to pull the gun apart and put it back down, reset those screws, add some Loctite, stake them, do something. That is a nightmare result for a DI gun, is to have that gas block move. So when we built our MRP barrels, that was one of the things that we wanted to focus on was, not having that gas block move. So hopefully this metal rod doesn't get us kicked off. But so you can see there's no screws. This hole obviously is so we can drill the hole for the gas port that's up here. It doesn't actually do anything other than give us access to the top side of the gas block. And then there's this pin that locates laterally. You could actually remove this, and I don't recommend it. Don't do that. Don't remove this pin. But if it were to be removed, the pressed on gas block is going to keep it pretty squared away. So there's that. Let's see. Other questions. What upper did New Zealand Air Force use with their 14.5 barrels? That's what I think it was. They actually used the long quad on theirs. There was a couple of different iterations of New Zealand. Like there's a Special Forces rifle for New Zealand as well. I believe they used the long quad 14.5 and an enhanced bolt. Little tidbit for you clone builders out there. If you're wanting to build a Special Forces one, they had an enhanced bolt, and it was serialized to their lower. A lot of the parts were. So that's one of those things. Backorders. I knew this was going to show up. 6.5 Creedmoor MWS is coming. They definitely are. We've got some barrels that are about to be released from production. Those will hit orders and stuff. Some of them will go off to be complete rifles. Some of them will just ship. The barrels will ship out to your dealers and all that stuff. So the guys with back orders, you'll be seeing 6.5 Creedmoor barrels here pretty soon. Is adjustable gas system ever going to be a possibility on your DI systems? It's a fantastic feature. Yes, it is. But it's not really practical. Now, I'm going to tell you why. I know I'm going to get blown up over here. This is why an adjustable gas block is not technically practical in our perspective. This is just our perspective. We build a lot of combat guns and stuff. Typically, the best way to adjust a gas block is there's a couple different ways. There's one with a valve, so you'll have different holes that'll change how the gas is transferred from the barrel up to the tube. Generally, and the cheaper way to do it is to have a screw And that, so if this is your gas port that's going up from the barrel into your gas tube, you'll have a screw that'll open and close and block off that hole. And then what they'll do is they'll take the screw and then they'll drive another screw into it, and that'll lock. This is your locking screw, and it'll prevent this one from coming in and out. And then this one will obscure that hole going up and down. So that's the most common way I've seen it done. It's the more budget-friendly way for sure. The more expensive way is to have some sort of valve with detents and it clicks into place. But here's the issue with adjustable gas blocks. You have to understand what's coming through that system. A lot of gas, a lot of carbon, a lot of heat, a lot of pressure. The least desirable parts of shooting a rifle is going through that small hole. And that screw that comes across that, or the valve or whatever, it'll get gunked up, it'll get carboned up, and eventually it'll lose its ability to be quick adjusted. Unless you put a lot of high temp anti-seize on it and really take care of it, adjust it a lot. Every time you shoot it, for more than a few hundred rounds, you take that screw, loosen it, back it out, break the carbon off of it. That is one of the things that'll happen. And you got to take that into account, that if you're going to be doing it, you got to do it a lot to make sure, or you set your gun up specifically for that. And that's one of the things that LMT won't do, is set up a gun with an adjustable gas system. If we're going to build a gun to be featured, specifically for suppression, we'll just drill the gas port specifically for that. So that way you're not, sacrificing reliability or tunability or something like that. It is what it is. That's how the gun's meant to be. Typically, all of our guns are set up with an optimal gas port for both suppressed and unsuppressed. It's going to be optimal to make the gun run. Might not be optimal to the shooter, because as soon as you throw that can on, you're going to get that increased gas pressure. So keep that in mind. That's one of those things that you're going to see. And that's why we don't do that. There's a lot of commercial focused companies that'll put an adjustable gas block on. But for like a law enforcement or a military user, the one thing you don't want to have is a screw that you don't have eyes on all the time. That little screw that's on the side of the gas block, that'll be hard to put a witness mark on. That's one of the things you see a lot of in the wild, like real military MRPs. And you'll see like Sharpie marks or paint marker or something like that on the locking screws or on the castle nut or something like that. They'll do that to make sure that they quickly grab their weapon system and know that, yep, it's exactly where it needs to be. None of these screws have moved. A crucial one would be the one on your gas block. If you had an adjustable, it's very hard to put a witness mark when it's underneath the handguard and be able to look and see, oh, yeah, it moved or it didn't. So keep that in mind when you are building a duty weapon or a home defense gun with an adjustable gas block. Set it up the way you need it to be set up, and don't look at changing it all the time. So, that's just a little tip from LMT. Free flow rails for normal M4 uppers. James J., I appreciate the question. Unfortunately, no. We're probably not going to do that. And the reason is we've got so much time and dedication and research into the MRP. It is really a superior platform to a handguard upper receiver setup. That handguard upper receiver setup is nice because you can change the rail and you can do different things. What you're getting a lot of is you can't swap your barrel fast. You can still put it on an armorer's bench and change it in about half hour, something like that. Pull your flash hider off, gas block, handguard, all that stuff. But what you don't get is the rigidity. We are unparalleled for lack of flex in our upper receiver. So that upper receiver is pretty solid. It's not going to go anywhere. You're going to be able to put a laser out front and be able to do that. With a standard, standard M4 upper, you're not going to be able to keep that laser in the position where it needs to be. As soon as you barricade up, you're going to flex. If you get any of that, 1 to 3 MOA shift at 100 yards, It's 3 inches. Doesn't seem like a lot if you're just shooting at like a man size or IPSC size steel or something like that. But when you take that and you translate it out to 600 yards, that's a big deal. You're going to miss your target. 300 yards, you might hit something that you weren't aiming at. And that's crucial for guys who shoot under nods with that laser. You got to be able to trust that laser is exactly where it needs to be. So no real interest, especially with all the development that we have in our MRP, but we are bringing out better MRPs. I mean, you've got the Spec War upper, that one's out. The longer MWS upper, that one's out now, and it's on the website. You guys should hit it up, especially if you're building a DMR setup. A little tidbit of where that technology's come from. We don't talk about it a lot, but there's a new program. I don't know if I hit it in the last video or not, is MRGG, mid-range gas gun. You can Google it. It's a program that was put out specifically for SOCOM for a new DMR rifle. And it's coming down to now us and LaRue. I can tell you who's going to win it. All right. So keep your eyes for the news on that one. But that is where that long upper is coming from. That's where all the tech came from. So if you're interested in picking one of those up, I know there's a handful of them still on the website. Sold a bunch over the weekend. So that is the first iteration of that upper. Is coming straight from that program. It's when we did our production run for them, that was what was left over. So if you're grabbing one of those or you're interested, definitely keep that in mind. It's a little bit more expensive. You get about 3 inches more, but it's a good, if you got an 18 or 20 inch barrel, that's the way to go. It will take 16-inch barrels. However, you might have to shim them if you're going to use certain compensators, or if you want to do a muzzle device that attaches a suppressor. You might have to shim out that flash hider a little bit, but it's a pre-production model. These are all billet. You're really cool. Like if you look at the bottom of the brass deflector, you'll see the billet markings on there. That's a telltale sign that it wasn't forged. So check that out. And check that out. Pick one of those up if you're in the market. It's definitely going to be a fast mover. So let's see here real quick. 12.5 barrel, mid barrel with lower powered ammo. It was designed for the 855. It is high pressure, but the pressure that we're looking at, the guys that are using that upper, they're using enhanced bolts, not the enhanced carrier. They want standard performance from how it opens and closes and all that stuff. They're looking for the bolt not to shear lugs. That was their main thing. It does have higher pressures, but we didn't tune the gas port for that load. There's still other rounds that they're shooting. They're still shooting 193. They're still shooting Mark 262, which is the 77 grain OTM. They still need it to cycle all that. Personally, I haven't shot anything like 223 UMC or anything through it. I have shot some lower powered 5.56 and 223 suppressed, and I had no issues with that. But when it comes to unsuppressed low power ammo, you're not going to have any issues. It's going to cycle it just fine. We've had a lot of that. But, when you start messing with, that's using carbine spring, carbine buffer weight. I get into that a lot with guys on, they're trying to tech some things out. That's one of those things I always say is leave the buffer system stock until you see how it performs. Then once you get it there, if you want to add some weight to it or change out the spring or something, go ahead and do that. But keep in mind, that's how it was built. That's how it was designed and tested, is with a carbine spray and carbine buffer. So if you have any problems with your system, go back to that and see if that solves anything. Let's see. Why do MRP quad rails have small threaded holes everywhere? On the quad rail, it's let me see if we can get away with this. Okay, so this is just a piece of aluminum. You can see these threaded holes here. This is the top of an M-lock upper. But these threaded holes here were originally put in to mount a laser. It's an older design. It's pre-PEC, or maybe even like the PEC 1 or something like that. But it's a really old laser that instead of having a clamping system, the traditional way to do it was to mount it straight to the handguard. That is a little tidbit of why those screws are on the top. It's a design feature that doesn't really cost any time or money when it's in the machine. It's just right there, and we've gotten so good at doing them. It reduces the weight slightly. So, for you guys that are high speed, keep that in mind that, that's saving you ounces, maybe. Probably not. No, it's not at all. But that's what that's there for. On the sides of the quad rail, I would imagine it's from other similar accessories that run bolted on accessories or optics or lasers or something like that, flashlights, rather than having them clamped to 1913. So let's see. Oh, CT, New Zealand Air Force 14.5 has the bayonet lug. Yes, they did. There was a 14.5 bayonet lug model. It ran the standard CQB, the quad rail upper. Nothing fancy about that. So, a valve system like piston system is what I was referring to, knife curse. So the issue with that is our valve system, the one that we typically use for the piston system, that block won't fit underneath the handguard. There are some other ones out there. Again, you can adjust them. But again, having more moving parts, more things to fail, that's something that we don't really want to jump into. It's a good idea, but it's not something our customers ask for a lot. We get it occasionally from very specific customers, and they're usually in the LE community. They want to be able to adjust their stuff more, but it's not. And said it's a worthwhile design change for where our guns are at right now. So maybe in the future, but right now, no. So hints on the Spec War upper right now. Maybe in the future we'll drop some content of the guys out in the field with them. Until they, I get a text message saying, "Hey man, go ahead and release it." No, these guys are pretty cool. They're I would say they're in the top of the elite. Not like Navy type. These guys don't get hardly any of the credit that they deserve, but they work really hard. A lot of deployments, that sort of stuff, and a lot of times when I sell the it's not to units, it's the individual guys who can buy their own equipment and then take it down range with them. So keep that in mind. What makes a precision rifle a DMR? Designated marksman rifle is a term that's thrown around a lot. A DMR is not necessarily a sniper rifle. A designated marksman rifle, well, when we were in the military, something like the M21 EBR was one of the first, for my generation of guys and stuff like that. We're talking early 2000s to 2010, something like that. After that, you start seeing a lot of other things come around. But the M14 EBR and the M21, that was one of the first designated marksman rifles that we had seen. I would say the original one, and some of you guys, I know there's some over here that'll chime in, know exactly what I'm talking about. Let me see if anybody can guess it. It's from World War II, the original DMR rifle, and it shot 30-06. Nope. Maybe it's a little bit of a lag. Maybe you'll get it. Or if you don't, it's the M1 Grand M1. I believe it was the D model, and it actually had a scope mounted off to the side of the sights. So you can aim through the sights and then through the scope. Yep. So Dean, got it. Good job, buddy. The M1D was the original DMR rifle, in my opinion. But what makes a DMR rifle? It's a traditional battle rifle. It's something that usually holds a lot of ammunition. So 20 rounds, 25 if you pick up one of the bigger magazines. Capable of a lot of fire and capable of doing your standard rifleman stuff, clearing rooms, deploying on a patrol, and having a lot more ammo. Your sniper rifle is not something you're traditionally going to. I mean, you see it in videos and stuff like that, movies where guys hump with it, and you see them walking through the desert and the mountains. Traditionally, they don't do that. They'll put it in a drag bag, and then deploy, and they'll usually have an M4 or an M203, like your SEALs and stuff like that. They'll want as much firepower as they get. Yeah, the sniper rifle is a force multiplier because you can reach out a long distance. But a lot of times when they're looking at that distance, it's usually for targeted acquisition, PID and stuff like that. Recon, they're looking. They might not even take a shot. They're there to gather intel. The DMR rifle is usually deployed with a frontline, like infantry unit or something like that, where they need a weapon system with slightly more range and capability. That's what a DMR can do for you, is give you the performance of a traditional battle rifle or weapon system, but it's specifically designated as a marksman rifle. You give that to your best shooter in a squad or something like that, and he's going to take those longer shots. Where, and you see it in Iraq, Afghanistan, everybody's running around with M4s. He'll have a mark, the M110. That's typically thrown out as a sniper rifle, but it runs a DMR role, or an M14. Early Iraq, you'll have that on a checkpoint or something like that. The 308 round, it has superior ballistics over a 5.56, and that's about it. 308 is kind of a dog when it comes to long range precision rifles, or rounds. So like 6.5 Creedmoor can mop up the floor with a 308, but for penetrating barrier or glass or something like that, the 308's the way to go. And if you can put a scope on it, it's even better. So that's what makes a DMR versus a precision rifle. You can make precision rifles out of DMRs, but is a MWS or an AR-10, for the uninitiated, is it ever going to match and beat bolt guns? Chances are it won't. That bolt gun's going to maintain all the pressure and all the energy and stuff like that behind the bullet, where on an AR, we've got to cycle that action still. So it always will have a disadvantage. Can it play? Can it hang? Absolutely it can. But that's not what it's built for. It's built for having that battle rifle feature. So let's see. Piston 308 barrels this year. Yeah, we're planning on it. We just got to get Estonia taken care of first. So once we're done with the contract, we'll start taking care of some other stuff. Dealers letting out allocations for the Spec War upper. Probably not anytime soon. I haven't taken any back orders yet. Your main dealer channels will get them. So, I've run through them before. Primary Arms, Legion Rifle Works, V1 Tactical, Titan Defense, Boss Firearms, all those guys, Brownells, Tombstone, they'll have the availability to place the back order when I do open it up. We do have a lot of them in the production queue. They're not in machines yet, but they will be. So keep a lookout for those. As soon as your dealers let you know they're taking back orders, or if you see some more information about them from LMT Defense, go ahead and reach out, place your back order. Don't wait for it to show up on your LGS, your local gun shop shelf, hanging out. So yeah, definitely keep your eye open for that. Derek Johnson, good job on the M1D. Com block calibers with the MRP. We did do 7.62 by 3.9 at one point. It hung around for a second. Mainly, it was to answer a tender request from a country that had a lot of ammo, but didn't have a gun to shoot it, a good gun to shoot it. Typically it's an AK. There are some needs for it, but however, the ammo isn't what it used to be. Back in the day, you get a spam can of 7.62 by 3.9 for 10 cents a round. It was everywhere. You're shooting it in the oh, guys, help me out. Not the Mosin, your SKS, shooting 7.62 by 3.9. And there was a lot of them everywhere. The ammo was everywhere. That's not what it is today. 7.62 by 3.9 isn't on every shelf, every discount ammo or gun shop. It's something that you've got to order still, and the prices are going up like crazy on it. So when you're talking about spending between 30 and 70 cents a round for ammunition, is the 7.62 by 3.9 still a desirable caliber? It was super desirable when you're shooting it out of your AK for 10 cents a round. But if you're spending 45 cents or even more for brass case stuff, is that really a desirable caliber? You got 300 Blackout that has a similar grain projectile, moving at a slower speed, good to suppress. The 5.56 is a tremendous caliber for a wide variety of purpose out to 500 yards. So is it still a great caliber? Yes, in certain roles. If you want an AK, get an AK, though. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that the AR is better than the AK or whatever, but if you want that performance, that's the gun you want to go with. It's pretty simple there. We did it. We made some bolts. We made some barrels, and we sold them. They weren't a huge mover. There weren't, people beating down our doors to get more of them. So it's just one of those business decisions. You stick with what you can to keep people happy. So, let's see here. Why wasn't the MRP submitted to the SCAR program? That was before my time. Couldn't answer that. I'm not going to speak for Carl, because I would say the SCAR program is pretty much for who we have here and ownership and stuff like that. That was before a lot of people's time. So couldn't tell you why, or maybe it was and it just didn't meet that down select. But I think if I was to, well, actually, we're not talking about the SCAR. We're talking about a more recent one, and it was in there. Just wasn't down selected the way the program went. So there's a couple different SCAR guns, SCAR programs, but yeah, it was. Let's see here. What is the name of the Estonian Piston Border Patrol upper? You know what? How do we refer to it? I'll tell you how I refer to it, and this is just kind of the name that's been thrown around the shop. It'll probably just end up becoming, the piston upper, the M-Lock piston upper, or something like that. The MRPL piston, something like that. We call it the shovel nose here. Well, I call it, and a couple other guys call it the shovel nose. It's very unique in its design and its look. So maybe you guys can come up with a cool name and throw it on our Instagram, and tag the recent Instagram post. Put the cool name, and seriously, don't call it the Rainbow Unicorn upper or something like that, because that's not going to make it to the website. Give us a cool name for it, and maybe I'll throw out a hoodie or something like that to the guy who we picked the name from. So, little challenge for you guys, little cool deal. Longer gas systems on a 6.5 example, proof research +2. No, that's a lot of that's based on commercial desire. Those guys shooting DMR or PRS gas gun series. They're tuning their gas systems and their barrels, their custom barrels, to whatever they like. The 6.5, there's really nothing else to do outside of the 20-inch. you're not gaining more performance by going to 22 or 24 inches. That happy spot's between 16 and 20. So right now, the 20-inch system, the 20-inch barrel has a rifle gas. That rifle gas likes its tune. We don't have any performance issues. And again, we have it set up to shoot both suppressed and unsuppressed. So we don't have a lot of overgas issues with our 6.5 Creedmoors set up currently the way they are. So I don't think we're going to be going to a +2 anytime soon on that. And then we'd have to only run it in the long upper. So let's see. Come up with some rail covers for the M-LOK chassis. So right now, when you buy a complete rifle system in M-LOK, it just ships with Magpul, the rubber inserts. We could probably come up with something, make it cool, make it neat. I was just looking at the rail scales today. That'll probably be what'll go on my personal rifle. I'll pick up a couple of those. But here's the deal. We make a lot of stuff here. If I was to take production away from a barrel or an upper receiver or bolt carrier or something like that to make an M-LOK rail section that's commercially available everywhere by a billion different people, the rest of your buddies over here in the comment section would strangle you, because that's what they come to LMT to buy, is that upper receiver or that barrel or that lower or something like that. So I don't want to, we've only got X amount of capacity. And right now, a lot of that capacity, all of it is tied up. It's working every single day, 3 shifts a day, 6 days a week. We take Sundays off, but we're busy. So there's not a whole lot that I can do. And we could outsource it or something like that, but why not just then buy it from somebody else? So Magpul ones are what it comes with. You know, we'll leave that up to you guys to see how you customize your rifles with what you do with them. So, you know, show us what you think is cool. You know, send us pictures. I like to share people's builds on our Facebook and Instagram. So let's see. Chuck, that's not going to work. I'm sorry. Let's see. I want everything LMT. LP shooter, we get it. MLC versus CQB. Any preference, thoughts, especially regarding girth and structural rigidity? Good question. I don't think he's watching, but Rob our LE, key LE rep, him and I go round and round on this. You know, we're both from a military background. He spent a lot more time in the military than I did, and then went over and spent a ton of time as an LEO. So he has a lot more time behind the gun than I do operationally. And him and I go round and round. I am a big fan of M-LOK. I like M-LOK for it's lightweight. You can add the rails where you want them. You can leave them off if you don't want them. And there is a ton of modularity to it. There's people with the covers, you know, the rail covers. There's people with, you know, hand stops and foregrips and flashlight mounts and, you know, different types of 45-degree angle mounts for your rails and all that stuff. There's a ton of availability out there. The nice thing about it is you can customize it the way you want. And M-LOK is really driven home as being a solid product. It's been tested. It's beat Keymod, you know, in whatever tests, you know, Crane did. So it's out there, and it exists for people to buy and manipulate the way they want to. When it comes to it, quad rail won't break. It's not going to fail. You know, screws aren't going to come loose. The rails are there forever. You'd have to crush it with a truck or a tank or something like that for it to really, not an MRP. Ours won't crush, but, you know, a standard quad rail from everybody else, you'd have to, you know, kill it with fire. But it works. It's always there. I know people call it the cheese grater and all that stuff. You know, really, when it comes down to if I had one AR for the rest of my time, couldn't do anything else, and it was just given to me, and this is the way it's ever going to be, quad rail would be the way to go, because if I can't buy rail sections, if I can't repair it, if I can't do anything like that, I don't have to worry about it. You know, whatever flashlight I find that mounts to a rail is going to mount to that gun. Whatever foregrip that mounts to a rail is going to mount to that gun, and there's decades of them out there. You know, so keep that in mind. But it's personal preference. It's the way you are going to build your gun and how you want to set it up. Yeah, it has a little bit more weight. Yeah, it has a little bit more girth. But training, you know, and I dressed up today like my boy Mike over at Grand Thumb. You know, training. You can look cool and you can do all that stuff, but if you don't get training, you're not going to be there. You're not going to get it, you know. So shoot your gun. Once you build it, go out and run it. You know, you can overcome adversities like a little bit of extra weight or girth on your handguard by choosing the right setup for a forward assist, or no, sorry, not a forward assist, but a hand stop or a vertical grip or something like that. You can overcome those by training, you know, and a lot of guys have to, because they just get their guns issued by a department or by their unit, their military unit, and they have to work through it. So just like soldiers in the military, a lot of other people have to work through it. If you got one gun and that's all the money you got for it, run it the way you got it, and don't beat yourself up, you know, spending you know, the $800 that an MRP upper is going to cost you to switch it from quad rail to M-lock. So keep that in mind. Run your gun the way you need to run it. So let's see what else. Will a Defender 2000 lower ever be phased out by the Mars lower? No, it won't. And I'll tell you why, because there are some people that still want and need a standard receiver. One, it costs less. You know, obviously the forgings, there's only 5 of them, and we've got 2. We've got the MRP or the Mars and the standard Defender. So out of the 5 forgings that exist, LMT owns 2 of them. So you can go run to ARPCOM with that bit of information. That the Mars forging, it takes more time to make. It has a different mold. We can't just use a standard one. And we don't weld material on. So we've got 2 different forgings for it. So we have to order both of them. There are still people that want it. And believe it or not, the Mars, if you are at a law enforcement unit per se, and let's say you're on their special teams or their SWAT team or something like that, you'll probably, you know, draw a Mars rifle, you know, from inventory with the MRP 11.5-inch barrel, something cool like that. And you can build your training up for that right side bolt catch, you know, bolt catch and release. You know, you learn how to manipulate and work through malfunctions and stuff with it. And then guess what? If I take that weapon from you, put it off to the side, and hand you a standard M4, it happens to me all the time. I've got some other guns at home that I shoot and I enjoy taking out to the range, but I find myself hunting for that right side bolt catch. I've grown accustomed to locking the bolt open and checking it. And then when I go to do that, I lock the bolt open, it's not there. So then I have to go back to the old school way of doing it, or put the stock on your leg, pull it back, check to make sure it's open, and hit your thumb with the bolt catch. There is a training scar that can develop if you are in and out of professional shooter roles where multiple types of guns are used. However, that being said, everybody's going ambi. So Mars, and when I came on to LMT, I made that a goal to push LMT into that realm of Mars is a standard option or offering. So if you look at like our you know, our standard offerings, we got 12 of them or 13 guns. So those are the main guns that we make here. Only 2 of them use standard non-ambi lowers. There's one on the 308, the standard Defender 308 or MWS, and then our Defender M-lock upper build 16-inch barrel. Those are the only 2 guns that we make that aren't Mars. So you will develop some training scars from it, but that's where range time comes in. You know, guys who shoot ARs and stuff like that, they don't really have an issue. So get out, train, you know, shoot your gun and have fun learning how to do it. So that's the big thing. Let's see here. Are there any pro-type Keymod LMT uppers laying around? No, they're not. They're called LM8. That's the third pattern of MRP uppers. So there's quad, there's M-lock. Those are the two everybody knows. Then there's LM8. LM8 is back in, let's rewind the old clock, the time machine, to like 2009. 2009 was when we released the first year of the MWS. At the same time around that, we released LM8. Now, if you go back to 2009, if you were a shooter, if you were in the industry, you'll know that M-lock, if it existed, it was hardly known or used. Keymod, same thing, was out there, but you had companies like Troy and you had Midwest Industries and stuff like that that were making handguards and rail systems that were then when they were just becoming popular. Free float systems were just becoming popular in the early 2000s. Everybody had their own style. They had their own nuts, they had their own screws, they had their own pattern and everything like that. And so they were everywhere. You didn't know what you were using. But, you know, a couple of those examples, Troy and Midwest Industries, were among the popular ones. And you'll notice that those companies are both using now M-lock. They've done Keymod as well. So they pick up the industry standard. So LMT never picked up an industry standard until M-lock. You know, we went our own route as well. We were in that fight to say, this is what's good. You know, and that's where LM8 came around. And LM8 is really a bomb-proof system. It's got a little locating tab. So if the screws were loose, that rail's not sliding forward or back. The screws all use a good patch of Loctite. So if you have an LM8 system, don't say, oh, you know, my rail's inferior. It's really not. It's lightweight. It's smooth. That's why we call it the slick. And you can add the rails where you want them. We have, you know, small rails, big rails, you know, extra long ones, all that stuff. You can really change out the LM8 the way you want to do it and still be modular. So keep that in mind. But no, we never did any Keymod. Crane said it was bad anyway. So 224 Valkyrie is dead now? Question mark. Any plans to offer 6 Creed for the folks that love those on MWS? 224, there's still people that shoot it and like it. It's a neat caliber. I just don't think that it was ironed out enough. We had some of the first releases back when Federal dropped the line, and it ran good with certain rounds. The problem is it didn't run good with everything. The performance, which is why people buy the 224 Valkyrie, is for that performance, wasn't repeatable across its ammunition availability. So that's one of those things. When people start losing faith in it, why continue offering it? Especially when they're like, oh, well, I'm going to stay inside of 600 yards or 500 yards. Yeah, it's good at 500 yards or 300 yards. But so is 77 grain, you know, 5.56, the OTM. It's a terrific round. It's super accurate. The reason for that 224 was sub 1,000, you know, to keep supersonic past 1,000. That's what people wanted it for. And when it couldn't perform at that level, or if it did, but only with hand loads, you know, tailored to a barrel or something like that, that's in that realm of PRS shooting and stuff like that. And you let those guys build their own rounds and custom guns and stuff. So when it comes to, you know, 6 Creed, maybe there might be a place for that in the future. We'll see. It really depends on what its popularity drives. Right now, it's really popular in certain circles, PRS being one of them. But for the U.S. military, law enforcement, all that stuff, they're just now getting into 6.5 Creed more. They're a little behind the times. So, you know, they keep learning from the commercial market. So eventually you might see that. Regarding the gas block on the LMT, are they installed via drilling and pinning to the barrel or dimpled, then set screwed to the barrel? If you've got an MRP barrel, just go ahead and take a look at it real quick. Covered this earlier in this video, not our botched one that we got shut down on, but no screws at all. It's pressed on and then drilled with that lateral pin. So we don't use any screws or dimples or anything like that. That's a commercial way of doing standard gas blocks, the smaller ones. And drilling and dimpling is one of the better ways with the set screws, especially if you use a cut point set screw, because you need it to bite into the barrel a little bit to reduce its chance of sliding or backing out. Angle gas ports as well. Good job, LP Shooter. And if you guys don't know, all of the MRP barrels run an angle gas port. That angle gas port, what it does is it reduces the erosion over time on your gas port, which increases your cyclic rate. On full auto rifles and stuff like that, after 5,000 to 10,000 rounds of full auto fire, depending on how they've been shot, they'll eat away at that gas port and then speed the gun up, and that affects downrange parts, your bolt, your hammer, your op spring, all that stuff. You know, it all takes a beating when the gun's working faster. So the best way to keep your gun is when it's running slow and happy, enough to feed the gun and work reliably, but not fast enough to beat itself to death. So that's one of the things about the 45-degree gas port, is it increases its longevity. Let's see what else. Any plans on lightweight barrels? Government profiles make no sense. Government profile barrels make no sense to the commercial market because they're heavier. And what else do? They soak up a lot of heat. They take up a lot of abuse on full auto fire. Lightweight barrels are perfect for your commercial market. Yes, we do have some plans for lightweight barrels. Obviously, on our 308 setup, we have a whole line of lightweight family barrels. As a matter of fact, if you take like a lightweight 16-inch barrel compared to a standard 60-inch barrel, we pull almost a pound out of that barrel. So if you have an MWS or one of our Mars H systems or something like that, and you want to put it on a little bit of a diet, pick up a lightweight barrel. Those are available. The MWS barrels are typically available. So, you know, if you don't see one floating around, call up your dealer, see if you can give us a call and order one for you. So, on the 5.56, we are looking at that, but traditionally, our barrels aren't really government profile. A government profile, you'll see this right here, solid. It won't have a taper at all. So ours aren't really government profile. They are tapered a little bit, but they are a little bit heavier. So that's one of those things. You're not going to see a pencil barrel out of LMT anytime soon. The main reason, and I'd love to do it, the main reason is which barrel do I do? It's probably going to end up being a 16. And everybody wants the piston or the pistol length barrels, 11.5, 12.5, that sort of stuff. So when you heat the barrel up, you're also going to lose that accuracy. So keep that in mind. 14.5 pencil, there it is. Yeah, you can pin and weld. Let's see, what else? LMT BCG versus EBCG. Life expectancy in the mid-length upper. I haven't really done the research on that. That you're not going to really see bulk carrier group life advertised. And the reason for that is because it really comes down to how you shoot. Are you shooting a lot of full auto? Are you shooting a lot of rapid fire? Are you shooting a lot of high pressure rounds versus low pressure rounds? All that stuff. Do you hand load? Are you doing what, you know, how do I say what the life of a bulk carrier group is? The enhanced bulk carrier group is not really meant to enhance the life of itself. It's there to enhance the life of the gun. And the main reason for the enhanced carrier is to really slow down that unlock time to make sure that the brass has enough time to constrict and aid in extraction. That's really the main point of the enhanced carrier group, is to keep the gun in the fight. So starting with when it comes into the gas key, it's got two ports that come down. So if your bolt's right here, right inside the carrier, when the gas comes down, it's got two ports instead of a single one. And that helps spread that gas out around the back of the tail of the bolt. And then moving down the line, as soon as it opens, we've got extra venting holes to let that gas out. Because once it starts opening, it's really done its job. The gas is in there and it's done its job. It just pops that bolt out, which starts the speed of the carrier going back. Once it opens and unlocks, we're just dumping that gas a little bit faster. And then lastly, there's the cam track. So when it comes back, that carrier will move, I want to say it's like 1/4 of an inch. It'll move about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch further before it unlocks the bolt and it travels downrange. That's the main feature. That allows the gun to cool down, doesn't make it softer shooting, doesn't take the gas away from the system. It's not going to make your gun shoot better. It's going to improve the way the gun runs and its life expectancy. So, especially on extractors. So if you are seeing you're tearing up extractors all the time or something like that, maybe throw the enhanced carrier in there. It might do you some good. So, or get the enhanced bolt with the lobster tail extractor. A lot more pressure there. Let's see. We'll wrap this up. I know that we started the video before. We talked a little bit about the DMR stocks and the benefit of that. I've got 5.56 ones, quite a lot of them available. So if you're interested in checking it out and you want to add a little spice to your gun and change the way that setup is, if you've got extra barrels for your MRP upper, you should have the DMR stock that really do the full complement of how your gun can run and what it can do. So take a look at our website. Check with your dealer about ordering one of our DMR stocks for your 5.56 rifle. It's a good investment. And then likewise, pick up another barrel for your MRP. You know, it's always good to have a spare barrel or something like that, especially when you can change it as easily as you can. Check that out. And then the MRGG mid-range gas gun contract upper is available now on the website. I got a handful of them left. Get on there and grab one before you can't. That is the pre-production model, the billet one. So it might end up being a collector's item down the road. You never know. So if you want to grab one of those, check it out. We'll take a couple more questions, then I'm going to sign you guys off. So I'll trade you in a beast geriatric cat for a Spec War upper. Man, I'm a dog guy. I said it before. Send me your Belgian Malinois pics. I'm not a cat guy. This guy will take it though. 6 arc. We talked about a 6 arc bolt or barrel in the future. Probably won't be. We'll let the government figure out if that's something that they're interested in before we start getting requests for it. We haven't gotten anything yet. So, hey guys, I appreciate. I see the comments where you say, "Hey, thanks for doing this" and all that stuff. I appreciate you guys coming and dropping off your questions. You can call us up and ask them. Shoot your emails over. Don't wait once a month to ask us a question. We're here for anything. New pistol grips. New pistol grips will be shipping on all the new production rifles. You'll see those very shortly. What else? You can tell a billet from MRP or a billet from a forged MRP. The best way is when you look at radiuses or when you look at like little corners and stuff that are the best way is to mold them, is to forge it and get that corner. But if you look at some of like the flat marks where it tapers, you'll see little machine lines, or in the corners you can see tool chatter. That looks really cool, especially on our early MRP uppers, to some of the billet ones that we've got. It's very neat to see how much machining technology went into it. To be able to, we machined the curve of the upper, where like that on the left side where the bolt carrier group is and slides in its home. We machined that curve, and there's almost no machining lines on it. So that's really neat to see. And we're talking about uppers and machining from the early 2000s. So if you look at how much technology and machines have improved over the last, couple decades, we're getting really good at it. And we would do more out of billet, but it's just so expensive. So that's one of those things that, you'll see it and appreciate it when you do see it. So there's that. All right. Well, I think that's it. I appreciate you guys for coming. I'll close out the video again with a shout out to Mike Jones. I know he doesn't watch these stuff. He ain't got time for it. He's off doing much cooler stuff. But you know, I'm gonna end with his intro. You know, the way he does it or whatever. So, have you ever spent 25 minutes on a phone call trying to diagnose customer's problem, only to find out he wasn't even shooting an LMT? If you have, go ahead and hit that like button. You know, get in the comment section and check out why you are the most terrible part of my day, because I have to answer all these questions about green anodized. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.